Hi, my name's Tom Orchard. I work for a company called Nuaware. So we're a specialist distributor in the cloud and DevOps space. This presentation is part of a series of short videos covering off key topics in the cloud native ecosystem. So the purpose of this video is to essentially discuss Waterfall versus Agile, the comparison and where the sort of different methodologies are particularly relevant. So the first methodology to cover is Waterfall. So what exactly this is? So it's the idea of linear and sequential project management. So where customer requirements are gathered at the start of a project, then the project slowly progresses down through the design, the sort of development and coding stage. After that's complete, the testing, then on to sort of the implementation and the maintenance of the software or product thereafter. Waterfall is a very formal way of project management. So each phase has to be completed in isolation before the other can begin, and the phases are never repeated. And due to that isolation, the customers actually cease to be involved after the requirement gathering stage. So they're massively involved when the analysts are gathering the information around actually the specification, the functionality that's required. But then on after, the customer isn't actually involved until they see the end product at the implementation stage. It's a very easy way to manage software development, very useful where there are strict unchanging product definitions. So best case, where sort of I'd say Waterfall is still a really relevant method is probably in sort of medical software, aviation software. These are great examples where actually there's quite high risk involved. So you need to go through set stages, set process that's very controlled. However, sort of if you're in a more dynamic environment, it does fall down when you start to introduce change, especially in the form of new requirements, or perhaps you run into issues at the end at final testing. Because each stage in Waterfall is run in isolation, you have to return right back to the start of the process if there's an issue or a new requirement. Sometimes that can mean months or even years into a project after a lot of investment. And actually there's no working code in production because that's all released at the end as well. So you can see sort of 12, 24 months down the line, you can have no code in production, no functionality, and actually you're returning right to the start of the process. For this reason, if you look at the results, 82% of Waterfall projects are late or over budget, 51% are poor quality or lack key functionality, and 15% fail altogether. So that sort of moves on to, I guess, what many are starting to accept as the more preferred way of project management. And that's the way of doing it in a sort of agile manner. So this is an iterative way of working. It's where every feature runs through a full process before you work on another feature starts. So actually you're continuously testing new code, releasing that into production, resulting in working software being deployed much earlier on, and features continuously being added. So on top of this, Agile is extremely client-centric. So instead of just gathering requirements from the customer at the start, feedback is continuously provided right throughout sort of the whole process. So this allows the right functionality to be worked on and prioritized, and it allows you to work in the right order for the customer. Furthermore, on sort of the continuous testing piece as well. So alongside the feedback, this is something that actually happens throughout the process. So this is the idea of fail fast. So issues are uncovered at the start of small cycles, lasting days and weeks, instead of sort of long waterfall cycles that last months and years. So this reduces the overhead. It reduces the time wasted by developers reworking on projects, and actually allows them to focus on the sort of more high value tasks. Finally, I guess sort of the teamwork point, it's not something that usually comes up in a comparison between Waterfall and Agile, but actually it's a really interesting idea. So yes, it's completely true that Agile requires a lot of commitment to collaboration from the team. If there's not total commitment, then agile projects fail. Which for many, this sort of new collaboration is a new way of working. So what it can lead to, though, the end results of much higher productivity, much higher quality of the work being done, has been shown to really improve employee engagement. So if you can get that total commitment to work in this way, then actually the end results in terms of employee engagement are quite considerable as well. Great case study, sort of to prove a point around this, is actually the Salesforce case study from 2006. So actually, the point, they were really operating in what was a super complex environment. So what that meant is due to traditional waterfall methodologies of working, they were only able to deliver one major update a year to customers. So this low speed of delivery, this sort of lack of updated functionality, lack of sort of major releases, bug fixes, etc., was really affecting the customer experience, which in turn was hurting brand loyalty, and actually sort of the end result is a decreasing market share for Salesforce. They obviously had to turn this around. They blanket adopted an agile way of working across the organization at the end of 2006, and actually they were able to achieve the following results. So productivity as a result was up almost 40% per developer. In 2007, they had 4 major releases as opposed to the 1 in 2006. So they were able to deliver that functionality much more regularly to the customers. And as a result, they deemed that they were delivering the customer 6 times more value than they had the previous year. So this table sort of sums up, I guess, the advantages of working in an agile manner quite well. So if you adopt this project management style, then you're able to deliver more relevant features to the customer, deliver them faster with fewer errors, and that massively improves the experience they have, and in turn affects the market share in a positive way. Additionally, working in an agile way massively reduces the rework required by developers because you're failing fast. They can spend more time on high value activities. It increases their productivity and actually increases innovation, delivery speed. So you can take opportunities in the market as they arise and become a much more successful company. At the same time, you can do all this with less risk. So there's higher scheduling predictability. You can generate return on investment much faster. You can expose problems early on, and there's much less chance of project failure. So I think to summarize, Waterfall definitely still has its applications in the market today. If you're working on projects where requirements don't really change, they're fixed throughout, and perhaps there's a high risk associated with whatever product that is, be it sort of in aviation industry was a good example, medical industry, then absolutely Waterfall can still be relevant. If you're working in an industry where it's perhaps more dynamic, the requirements are ever changing, sort of really working on the customer experience. Great examples are sort of the retail market and what Amazon has done there. Finance as well is huge, and some of the disruptive companies coming through in that market. Then if you're in that situation, then perhaps Agile is a much better way of working. So if you've got any questions around this, there's definitely a lot more information that can be shared. Please feel free to reach out. And thank you very much for listening to the presentation.